Hi, everybody. My name is Pam Drzwicki, and I'm the owner and founder of the Purpose Den and the founder of Powerful Purpose, a life coaching practice helping women thrive in their lives. And I'm always thrilled to have the opportunity to have an amazing conversation with one of our members inside the Purpose Den. And this is the Inside the Den show, where we bring to you different topics. And this month, Ashley Song is here with us. I am so thrilled to have her. And it's okay. So the topic is the power of finding balance, which we all know is something we strive for, is balance. And having balance in our life doesn't mean that we're walking the straight line all the time. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
something that we all struggle with from time to time, especially.
As a mom, especially, we wear so many different hats, and we're called to be perfect in our balance. And if we have an off day, what's wrong? So there's always this fine tuning, and especially when you are a professional woman, or you own your own business, adding that on top of everything else that we're creating. But there's so much beauty behind balance and the foundation that we create to really have that balance in our lives. So today, I'm so excited to have Ashley here. She's going to share with us some amazing tips and insights. But first, she's going to share her story with us of why this topic is dear to her heart, the power of finding balance. Thank you so much to be here, Ashley.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much, Pam, for allowing me to be a vessel to speak today. And hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Song. I am the owner of a ministry called Spiritual Remend LLC. And I also have so many other backgrounds that I'm going to get into. Eventually. But Spiritual Remend is based off of a spiritual life coaching business for women, which is something that I'm very passionate about, as being a mother, as being a former wife, so many layers of what I had to learn as being a woman of God, and just being able to pour into other women the same way that God has poured into me, and the lessons that I had to learn to be able to help everyone with their journey. My journey kind of started, I would say October of 2023, when everything just seemed to have been falling apart. I went through a marital separation with my ex-husband, and we have three boys. And at the time, my oldest was 8, my youngest was 2. And so I had to learn, and I was living in a completely different state. My native state is Florida, which I'm back safely to now. But of course, during that time, I was in Oklahoma, and I didn't have family. I just had my coworkers that I've known for at least for a few months at that point. And it was very hard. It was very hard not having family, and just trying to, like, one day being a wife, having a partner, to the very next not having it at all. And I think that I kind of just got thrown into the wolves, and had to figure out exactly how to still be a mother, while fighting for my marriage, while working a full-time job, while the kids had their own activities and soccer and everything. My income got completely cut in half when my ex-husband left. So it was something that I kind of got thrown into, and I was just trying to find and figure out life on my own. And luckily, I did have individuals in my life during that time when I was in Oklahoma, my coworkers, who were very helpful. They lowered my rent, or because I was in property management, so they lowered my rent. They did certain things to kind of help out, but nothing compared to that loneliness that I was feeling with not having someone to pass the baton to, because I went from having that balance to not having it at all. So
Mhm.
God really took me through a series of pruning and refining and learning how to have that spiritual dependency to be able to trust that all things have been worked out, that the road had already been paved. And all I needed to do was just press more into him and his word and the promises that he had for me and continue doing those little works because things were going to continue unfolding the way that it should. And
Can I ask you a
sure,
quick question, real?
absolutely.
I want to know, while you were in that,
Yeah.
right? Like, because
Mhm.
he works miracles in the mass.
Yes.
He really, even in my own life, I've seen that, right? Like, in the midst of everything that's so hard, the awareness of what is needed from him to help
Mhm.
you through that, right? So while you were going through that mess and reconstruction of your life, something that you probably never thought would ever happen, right?
Right.
Like, when I got married, I thought first time, I thought I was going to be married forever. That
Correct.
was
Yep.
just, that's what you do, right? So I'd love to hear too, is through all of this,
Mhm.
how did you continue to find that balance? Was it leaning more into your faith? Was it leaning? I mean, it sounds like you have you had an amazing, and I'm sure you still do, what I like to call a dream team around you that you were able to go to
Right.
help you, lift you up.
Mhm.
What did it feel like then? Like, how were you finding that balance on those nights that, oh, you're just head hit the pillow because you were exhausted of overwhelm and
Right.
despair?
Honestly, around that time, even though I did have my coworkers that, did help a lot, I really didn't have the the team that I really needed.
Mm.
Because yeah, they helped with those miracles, right? Like how am I going to get food for the kids? Boom, someone was able to provide food. How was I able to afford this? Boom, I was able to have that. So it was more like that it took a lot of the pressure off. But what happened with me is that I had to learn the power of peace through it
Ooh,
all because
yes.
I was in my head. Things were just like, the one thing I always tell everyone is that we were created in God's likeness. So we're going to immediately be innovators, creators. So when we see a problem, we want to fix it. And
Want to fix
that,
it. Yes.
so we just immediately want to just press it and be like, okay, how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to figure it out. We always worry about the how. But God kept telling me, stop worrying about the how. It's not
Mm,
up to me to worry about the how.
love that.
He has the how. And so I had to continue with the who, what, where, when, and why, discerning who was coming into my life, discerning what I was supposed to be doing, discerning why I'm supposed to be doing that. And that all came with the intimacy that I had to have with God. And that was really hard because the word says that we were not made to do life alone. That was the very first thing that God said was bad was we were not supposed to
Yes.
be doing life alone. And so I had to learn in that moment the foundational faith of depending on God and
Mhm.
trusting and having faith and peace, knowing that He was going to pour into me and He was going to give me and provide for me the things that I needed. So that as He started bringing these individuals into my life over the years, and, I was able to appreciate and see their place and their position in my life to be able to move forward and carry on. It was a really hard thing to do because laying my head down at night, it was not easy. I would remember cooking for the kids, helping them with homework, putting them to bed, go taking a shower and crying in the tub. And because I didn't know. I'm like, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. Like I don't know how I'm gonna be at place A when I gotta be at place B and then go to C at the same time. Like, how am I supposed to do this? But what God gave me in that moment was peace. It says,
Mm.
have the peace in your heart. It doesn't mean that life is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that things are going to work out the way that you expect them to. I had to surrender to the idea of how I expected for things to go.
Oh, my heart is
That-
so
yeah.
fluttering right now
Yeah.
because how powerful is that?
Yeah.
Surrendering,
Yep. To the idea of how things are supposed to go. And that's a
that's,
whole other level of faith.
oh yeah,
That's
that's
a
another
whole other level of
conversation
faith.
we could have.
So much
Absolutely.
bigger.
Yeah.
And that's something that even now that I still have to continuously learn.
We
It's
all
something
do.
that, and that's something that I also implant into my coaching business, where I see women running a million miles a minute. And I'm just like, when did you stop to prune the rose? When did you
Mhm.
stop to watch the sunrise? We don't take the moment to pause and enjoy that peace that God
Amen.
is
Yes.
willingly want to bless us with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I had to learn during that process of my life, that I had to learn when to stop, trust, believe, and receive what
Receive.
God was trying to do in my life. And
Mm.
I think that ultimately, as I started believing and trusting more and more, that's when it started to pour into me having the balance of knowing that, okay, this may be what I need to do, but this is what God is having for me to do in this moment. So I
Mm.
had to balance it out and say, okay, God said yes, but not yet. So
Right. So,
I on that.
right. So listening to what he has to say
Yes.
and understanding the difference between your own thoughts
Mm,
versus what he is saying to you. And part of that is in the pause, is
right.
allowing yourself, right, to be silent around that and breathe. Just breathe. And I love that because that brings us to today with you're still balancing.
Yes.
And some people from the outside might see it as juggling, right? Like you're
Yeah.
juggling all of these different things. And in some sense you are, but you're balancing all of the goodness that he has given you to be
Mm,
able to go out and do the work that he's called you to do. So
absolutely.
I would love to hear and for you to share all that we started having a little bit of conversation offline about this, and then it was so good I was like we'll pick this up because we had to share this with other people, right? And it's about the balance of everything that you're doing
Oh,
and
yeah.
how are you doing it all. So let's talk a little bit about everything that you have your hands in right now.
Oh, yeah. So aside from the spiritual ministry, where that hubs the coaching business, it also hubs my radio. So of course I am a radio personality with Worship 95 through Autolist as a streaming platform. And that one, that segment is spiritual restoration. And then I also have a podcast called Spiritually Restored. And that is actually now through Autolist. It was through a company called Electricast, and they combined, so you can actually go and listen to the radio and the podcast on the same
Awesome.
app. And so on top of that, I have a job in digital marketing and media. And then I also do real estate and on with the coaching. And then now, of course, I have a son that's about to graduate at the end of this year, and then two other ones that have so many things going on, and trying to find the balance of it all. Not even taking into consideration the personal things that I got to do for myself, that I have to
Exactly.
try to make time for. That is a very challenging thing, to try to not lose my identity in
Mm-hmm.
all of that. Because everything that I'm
Mm.
pouring into, it's a spiritual occupation, it's the motherhood, it's everything that God is allowing me to be able to work on and cultivate, to be able to be of service. But I also have to remember that I need to receive that service within myself. And that has been the hardest.
I'm
The
sure it has
hardest,
been, because
yeah,
it's
you
so
don't have
easy.
the time.
Exactly. It's so easy to make our time and
Yeah,
what we need negotiable, right?
exactly.
So when we're working through that, say with my clients, we're talking about what are those non-negotiables? And you need to be number one on your non-negotiable, right? You need to have that ability, and you do have so many things. So fine, and they're all amazing, beautiful things. And what I love about it is it's like this circle of goodness, right? Like you could get me in all these areas, but they're all pointing to the same thing,
Yes,
right? And
absolutely.
your time needs to be pointed to that as well, would you say?
Absolutely.
Mm.
That and that for me would be God. That's what it is, because in order for me to be of service to others as well as to myself, to him, I have to keep my mind on things above and not here on earthly things. I have to keep my eyes focused on the goal.
Mm.
And there are the three principles that I always try to strive for. And the number one thing is building a firm foundation on your faith.
Mm. Yes.
Because you can't build a house on a rocky foundation. You can't build a house on sand. You can't build a house. I mean, we learn these things from the Three Little Pigs, right? We can't
Right.
you can't build things without wind or anything just knocking it completely down. And
Yes.
so when you have that firm foundation, you cannot easily be shaken. So things will be coming a million and unexpected things as well. You get curveballs,
Mm.
life throws lemons and this, and then you're like, okay, now I have to try to learn how to make lemonade, right? Like, where's the
That's
sugar?
right.
How can I allow my foundation with my faith to be that groundness that I need to make sure that I am staying focused, not what's happening around me, but what I'm standing on.
Mm.
And I think what ends up happening a lot of the times, and this includes me as well, what happens is that we try to build our foundation on what we do, how we
Mm.
do it, our titles, our labels, and everything else. That none of that matters. Your label can change in a matter of a second. One day you can be this, the next day you can be that. Your titles will
Absolutely.
always change as you grow and mature. And I was once a little girl, but now I'm a grown woman. I can't do little girl things. I can have fun like a girl.
Right.
I can
Right.
have fun sometimes, but I'm no longer a little girl. So I have to put those things aside and remember that I am a woman. So as you grow into who you're called to be, you know that you are going to continue working towards where you're going because your foundation is solid.
Mm.
And that's what I had to learn is as I am building, as I am growing, I know that as things are layered and building on top of one another, that my foundation is not going to be moved. And that
Mm.
all stems from my faith and knowing that I have a provider, I have a redeemer, I have a vindicator. I know that no matter
Mm.
what I go through in my life, everything's going to be okay, and it's all going to work for the good of those who love the Lord and is called according to his purpose. So
Yes.
I know that all that's going to be great. And another thing is just having the intimacy with God and how it brings release. I
Mm.
know that I can lay my head on the pillow, no matter what I went through that day, and say, God, I lay this all at your feet. Give me rest. And I wake up still feeling refreshed, as if what happened yesterday never even happened. Because
Mhm.
because I'm trusting God to take that and use that to either throw it out into the abyss or utilize that for my good. Or even utilize it as a lesson for me to learn in order for me to grow in my
Mm.
businesses, in motherhood. And And then third, it's how obedience is better than sacrifice. That is
Love
one
that.
part of the scripture that I absolutely love.
Love that.
Yeah, because it's all about being obedient to what you're being called to do. If you're called to be a mother, be a mother. If you're called to be a servant, be a servant. Whatever
Hmm.
it is that you're being called to do, be obedient in those necessary steps of where God has called you. Because what often happens is that we start to compromise. Okay, in order for me to get here, I have to be able to do this. So I'm going to let this go or that go so then I can do this. And that may not be what God called you to do.
Exactly.
That may not be
Yes.
what he told you. So a
Mhm.
lot of those imbalances that happen is because you are carrying the weight of things that God never told you to pick up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what I had to learn because Ashley loved to have her hands in the cookie jars.
Here I am. Yes,
Like,
I'm
oh,
with
there's
you.
snickerdoodles, there's chocolate chip, there's peanut butter, there's sprinkles, like I just
Yes,
it
yes.
all. And sometimes even though it's all a matter of God's even saying, I just need you to be obedient. And the first thing I told you to do, what's there is coming. But I need you to be obedient to the first thing that I told you to do.
That's beautiful. Discipline. Discipline,
Discipline,
too,
absolutely.
right?
Self-control. It's all about,
Self-control.
yes,
And
self-control.
that's another conversation
Oh yeah,
that is huge, self-control, because
absolutely.
we are caught up in what the world is telling us, our worldly people around us that draws, especially for coaches and people in business and entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We're drawn to what the bigger numbers are,
Mhm.
when reality is if we just follow and listen to what he wants us to do,
Absolutely.
our numbers at the end of the day are going to be our eternal numbers,
Right.
right? And it's ultimately going to bring us success.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
all about that definition of success and how you're finding the balance to align with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think that's what also happens too, is that we live in a world of instant gratification.
oh, yes.
Like, I need this now. I need the
Everything
money
now.
now. I need the business flowing now. I need this going
Yes.
now. It's like I need this all to be happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to when did you take a moment to pause
Mm-hmm.
and balance? Is that something that you need right now, or is it going to weigh you down because you're focusing so hard on this thing that you don't get a chance to appreciate this?
Mm-hmm.
When you're leveled on that foundation, you get to see the full view. If you are allowing something to weigh you down, you're not going to see the fullness of where you can go
Mm-hmm.
because you're always having to look up, how I'm going to go, like how I'm going to get there, when all you need to do is just put a little bit each day.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that with a lot of us, especially women, especially women who we wear so many hats, so many
Absolutely.
hats. Um, the thing is about women is that we are nurturers by nature. We are incubators. Like, we want to help everyone. Like, we were created to be a person's helpmate. So
Mm-hmm.
we are immediately and urgently drawn to helping our spouse, our
Taking
children,
care.
our family, and all those things. But what we're not taking a moment to realize is that we still need to be poured into, and we still have to be at peace, and we still have to be balanced in order for us to care and be there in the capacity that we need to be.
Exactly. And what he's calling us to be, right?
Right. Exactly.
And I find that very interesting. Like, when I left my career of all those years working 60, 70 plus hours a week to doing this type of work and having the capacity to be a mom, a wife, a daughter, and follow the needs because of the gift that he gave me.
Mm.
And a lot of times I'd have to pause and be like, wait a minute. And this is, you've given me this gift, but it's not showing up the way that I want it to show up.
Right. Right.
Right. So
Mhm.
finding that balance in our mind,
Yeah.
and really pausing. I keep, like you said, keep on going back to that pause is
Yeah.
so important. So while you're doing all this, Ashley, how do you find how do you find time for that self-care? What is your number one tip for that?
My number one thing about just feeling restored and refueled every single day is that
Hmm,
I had to develop a stronger praying life.
love
I
it.
had to, yeah, it is, and that could come in the form of just reading the word, implementing God, what God said is truth in my life, and not allowing the truth of what I'm creating in my own head to be
Mhm.
real. Because I can say that I don't have time, but God could be saying, there's a time for everything under the sun. It's just all a matter of just connecting the word to your praying life, and then journaling and spending time also in the most intimate places where you could feel restored and strengthened and guided. And for me, that place is the beach. I live right close to Cocoa Beach here in Florida. I'm only 20
Nice.
minutes away. And, unfortunately, all Floridians, we do not cherish the beaches as much as we really should. I think anyone from out of state enjoys them more than we do. And we take advantage. We definitely take advantage, or need to take advantage. But that is my place of stillness, of quietness, of being able to hear, of being able to pour and release. And I
Mm,
think that we have to understand that life is a cycle. We got to understand that the blood that flows through our heart is renewed every single time. It goes out, it filters, it goes through a way, and then it goes back into our heart again.
yeah,
And that's what we have to be able to do in our lives, is be able to pour out so that we could be poured into.
love
That
that.
comes from him directly, from his word, or him sending someone to minister to you, to speak life into you. That just happened to me this morning. I got a call from someone. I do have prophetic dreams, and he and his wife was like, tell us about that dream, because we're going through that right now. And I'm like, okay. So I told them about the dream that I prophesied over to them back in July. And then it turned into this whole, like, us pouring into and ministering to one another. And that's
Beautiful.
what I needed, because I had became so drained, and I'm like, okay, I'm releasing all of this. And I felt so empty because I poured out so much.
Hmm.
But again, that goes back to releasing it all to God, because the new day, he's going to pour back into me. Because when I woke up this morning and got that phone call, I got poured back into, and it renewed and restored my faith. And I think that that number one self-care is just making sure that you are staying true to who God says that you are. And in order to do that is staying in prayer, staying in the word, spending intimate time with him, understanding that the same way that we invest time into other people and our spouses and our children, we need to do the same thing with him, planning
Hmm.
those appointments and those date days or date nights with God.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to help bring clarity and peace over any situation that's going to create that balance in your life.
That's so beautiful and so, so true, is creating that intimate relationship with him
Yes.
and picturing him the way you need to, the way that comes to your mind
Mhm.
is really impactful.
Yeah.
I see him as a friend, that I sit and talk with. Other people may see him as a father, right? Or as a little baby. Like, just finding that story, that balance to connect with that, and finding those spaces. So I love that. Like, finding taking the time to refuel and restore your spirit is
Yes.
is your self-care. And that is so impactful.
Mhm.
I mean, we could go get massages and get our nails done and do of all these things, go for a walk. But what I've heard through this today is the ultimate place to be is with him.
Yes. Because it all starts within here. It starts within your spirit. And
Yes.
then that's when shines through. That's why we find ourselves being drawn and attracted to people who are spiritually like-minded like you are, or something that you
Mhm.
strive to want and want to have in your life.
Yes.
Because we are drawn to the spirit of the person. Because no matter what you're going through, when you're feeding your spirit, it bleeds out. You become the light of the world, and you become a magnet. I mean, of course, we have to also have discernment,
Balance.
so we know who's supposed to be there, who's not.
Right.
But also, because light attracts everything, right? It attracts anything. And so that's also the beauty of it, because that's when you are actually working in the fullness of who God has ordained and created you to be. Because if you are walking in spirit, because you are allowing yourself to feed into who you are spiritually, all things will flow, all things will happen in the way as it should, because you are choosing to walk in faith. You are choosing to walk in peace. You're choosing to walk in balance. You are trusting that everything is working in accordance to its time and its effort. And
Mhm.
even though I still have my moments where I'm like, oh goodness, this is taking too long. This is
Yeah.
like I have my moments.
Impatient.
Right. Be patient, self-restraint. But the beautiful thing is that I have to keep reminding myself every single time that I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. But God, I got to finish this, I got to finish that, but God, because I already know that what He's called me to do, it already has anointing and favor over it. So
Oh,
guess what? If it's not meant to be done that day, it's not meant to be done that day.
that
It's
is so
yeah,
beautiful. So beautiful. This whole conversation has been absolutely amazing. And I'm sure our listeners have found many, many takeaways.
yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and share all of your contact information
sure.
inside the show notes. Okay.
Yes.
And it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you, having you part of the community, working together, just everything about it. I'm going to ask you, excuse me, before we leave, what is one thing that you want to share with everybody that they should take away from our conversation today?
The one thing that I would love to share with all of you is finding what brings you peace will give you balance.
Mm,
Finding what gives you and brings you peace
mm,
is going to give you balance.
beautiful.
And whether that's family, whether if that's a walk, whether if that's whatever it is, finding what brings you peace is what's going to give you balance. It's going to give you a moment to reset.
Mm,
Just make sure that everything that you do it in spiritual and biblical truths,
mm,
because God's words never fall to the ground. It never falls to the ground. So what He has spoken over your life and what He has said in His word, it shall come to pass. Have
mm.
peace in knowing that, and you will find your balance.
Ah, Ashley, amen to all of that.
Thank you.
Oh
Thank
my,
you. That's
what a,
God. That's God. That's
oh,
all God.
you could so tell that he just works through you tremendously.
Thank
He
you.
really, really does. Your words are elegant and very meaningful. And this conversation, there, like I was saying before, so many takeaways. And I feel privileged and honored to have you here and spending this time with me today inside the den show so I could spread this word that you're shared with us today to all of our listeners, and everybody who's going to click on the link to listen to this is just going to be amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
You are so welcome. And also, if I may add really quick, if any
Yeah.
one of you guys want to strengthen your prayer life, I am currently going to be launching on Amazon a journal called Intentional Women's Prayer prayer journal,
Thank
and it's going
goodness.
to give you the opportunity to be able to pray, to pour out your worries, to be able to reflect for the gratitude, as well as increasing your praying life for others in your community and in your life. And I just think that that is a great opportunity if you're really wanting to strengthen your prayer life. That is going to be the journal that you are going to definitely want. So definitely follow me. So then when
Yes,
it launches, when it launches, you'll be able to connect in prayer in a way that is going to just propel you forward, and that's going to help increase everything that and at least give you the clarity of what God is trying to put in place into your life. So
I love that. So when it's available,
yes,
right,
which
you
will be
will.
very soon. We're looking, at least it's definitely going to be available for before the holidays.
Awesome. Make
Yep.
sure you share the link with me so I could go ahead and share it out to everybody else as well.
Sounds good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And it's just been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.